Welcome to Spoiled Vision Movie Recaps. Today, we explore the 2013 comedy Bully, which revolves around a young boy enduring relentless schoolyard torment. His life takes a turn when he decides to take up boxing to confront his bullies. Can he triumph over the tormentors? Let's uncover the story in Bully. Note: spoilers ahead, proceed with caution. The movie Bully opens by introducing three troublemakers, with Miles leading the pack. They attend school solely to target and bully vulnerable students. One of their frequent victims is Jimmy Mulligan, a larger young man. Despite Miles' incessant bullying, Jimmy never retaliates. He enjoys the support of two loyal friends, Andy and Bobby, and has loving parents. One day, on their way to school, Jimmy and his friends cross paths with Miles and his gang. Miles demands $100 from Jimmy, an exorbitant sum for him. Hailing from a modest background, Jimmy pleads his inability to pay, but Miles remains relentless. Jimmy, who is known for his hearty appetite, treats his friends to a meal in the cafeteria. They never mock him for his large portions. Andy and Bobby attempt to matchmake Jimmy with Adrian, a girl who often gazes at him discreetly in the cafeteria. Shortly after, Miles reappears, insisting on the $100 he demanded earlier. When a student objects to Miles' presence, he responds with aggression, but a physically imposing peer intervenes, driving Miles away. After school, Miles confronts Jimmy once more, demanding the $100. Jimmy stands his ground, claiming he doesn't owe Miles a cent, which leads to a violent altercation by the roadside. Miles had just ceased his assault on Jimmy when an elderly gentleman arrived and warned Miles of potential police involvement. Fearing the consequences, Miles quickly sped away. The kind old man, introduced as Mr. Actions, then assisted Jimmy and took him to his home to tend to his injuries. In Mr. Actions' residence, Jimmy learned that this elderly gentleman was once a world heavyweight boxer. With determination, Jimmy implored Mr. Actions to train him in the art of boxing, enabling him to confront Miles and end the bullying. Although Mr. Actions was eager to support Jimmy in his quest to defeat Miles, he recognized that his age precluded him from serving as a coach. Instead, Mr. Actions promised to enlist the help of his friends for Jimmy's training. Subsequently, he accompanied Jimmy back to his parents' home, informing them about the incident. Deeply appreciative of Mr. Actions' care and willingness to help, Jimmy's parents granted their approval for Jimmy to pursue boxing training under Mr. Actions' guidance. They even accompanied Jimmy to the boxing training facility owned by Manny. Mr. Actions then conveyed Jimmy's predicament to Manny, who agreed to assist Jimmy, provided he demonstrated unwavering commitment and perseverance. Given the grueling nature of boxing training, Jimmy embarked on rigorous training sessions with Manny, while Mr. Actions closely monitored his progress during every session. During their sessions, Jimmy confided in Mr. Actions about Miles' extortion attempts, whereby Miles repeatedly demanded $100 from him. In response, Mr. Actions proposed that Jimmy counter Miles by requesting $200, but with a 1-month deadline to prepare himself and gain the upper hand, thus avoiding the need to pay the increased sum to Miles. The following day, Jimmy followed Mr. Actions' advice when Miles returned to collect the money. Miles momentarily hesitated due to the extended time frame, but ultimately agreed to Jimmy's terms, granting him a month to fulfill the demand. For a while, Jimmy found relief as Miles ceased pestering him for money. However, during his boxing training sessions with Manny, he appeared fatigued and uninspired. When questioned, Jimmy claimed to be physically exhausted. Manny, however, keenly observed that Jimmy's issue was not physical fatigue, but rather a lack of mental focus. Manny then informed Mr. Actions of Jimmy's waning commitment to training. On their way home, Mr. Actions asked Jimmy about his lack of enthusiasm during practice. Jimmy confessed to feeling tired and disheartened, believing that his efforts were in vain, as he remained vulnerable to Miles' bullying. In response, Mr. Actions sought to uplift Jimmy's spirits, reassuring him that no effort is ever wasted. Regardless of the outcome, Jimmy would gain valuable lessons from his dedication and hard work. Upon arriving home, Jimmy's father also observed a waning enthusiasm in his son's training. He refrained from imposing any decisions on Jimmy, leaving the choices to him. However, he expressed a hope that one day, Jimmy could teach his own children self-defense to spare them from similar suffering. Deeply contemplating his father's words, Jimmy's fighting spirit reignited, and he resolved to continue training earnestly. The following day, Miles and his group once again instigated fear and violence, even resorting to beating Bobby in full view of onlookers. Approaching a distraught Bobby, Jimmy offered solace and shared his plan to confront Miles and end the bullying. Returning home, Jimmy took his bicycle and headed to Manny's boxing gym. Despite typically receiving a ride from Mr. Actions due to the considerable distance, Mr. Actions was elated to witness Jimmy's newfound enthusiasm, even if it led to a collision with Manny on arrival. Rather than anger, Manny welcomes Jimmy's renewed dedication to boxing. Subsequently, Jimmy rigorously trained day by day, fueled by unwavering determination. Manny introduced more intensive physical conditioning and mixed martial arts exercises. Meanwhile, Mr. Actions nurtured Jimmy's mental resilience, providing guidance and inspiration to fuel his fighting spirit. At school, Jimmy confided in Andy about his boxing training, aimed at conquering Miles. Simultaneously, Adrian approached Jimmy, and they agreed to start dating. Their connection deepened at a friend's party, leading to their decision to date. While enjoying their date, Eddie, one of Miles' cohorts, provoked Jimmy and Adrian with insults. However, the now confident Jimmy confronted Eddie, ejecting him from the situation. Time passed, and the moment of truth approached, but Jimmy was resolute in not allowing Miles to manipulate and bully him any longer. He woke up that morning brimming with confidence and determination. When Miles confronted him at school, Jimmy faced the threats head-on, unwilling to let his friends suffer. In a restroom encounter, Jimmy met Vinny, who, upon learning of his feud with Miles and his boxing practice at Manny's gym, offered encouragement and good wishes. Unbeknownst to Jimmy and Vinny, Eddie, who overheard their conversation from a toilet cubicle, reported it to Miles. At Miles' command, Eddie reached out to a notorious troublemaker known as Glass Jaw Billy, summoning him to school as Jimmy's adversary. The ongoing feud between Jimmy and Miles had captured the school's attention, drawing a crowd eager to witness the impending showdown. Brimming with confidence, Jimmy approached Miles and his entourage. Miles, anticipating Jimmy's refusal to pay up, had a plan to unleash Glass Jaw against him. However, Vinny acted swiftly, dispatching his associates to apprehend Glass Jaw, leaving Miles no choice but to face Jimmy himself. The confrontation ensued. Initially, Jimmy struggled against Miles but refused to yield. He rallied and countered Miles' attacks, ultimately landing a solid blow on Miles' face. Jimmy had transformed from the weak, bully boy into a self-assured defender, determined to protect the vulnerable from oppression. Observing Miles' dwindling advantage, his friends attempted to gang up on Jimmy. However, Andy and Bobby refused to stand idly by joining Jimmy in the battle until they ultimately defeated Miles and his allies. Following the victory, Jimmy confronted Miles, demanding an end to the bullying at school. Miles remained indifferent to Jimmy's plea. On the other hand, Mr. Action, who had silently watched the confrontation unfold, beamed with pride at his prodigy. Despite Jimmy's newfound strength, he retained his kind heart. The incident went viral after being shared on social media, eventually making its way to local television. Jimmy's brave stand against his bullies became a community talking point, earning widespread applause. His parents took pride in their son's newfound ability to stand up for himself and the end of his torment. The film concluded by depicting Jimmy, Andy, Bobby, and Adrian, now confident and recognized leaders at school following their successful dismantling of the bullying group. The movie left viewers with a powerful message: bullying others is easy until someone stands up in resistance. It reminded everyone not to judge and bully, as each person possesses their own strengths and weaknesses. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notification for more movie recaps.